Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some pro-revenge stories and our first story of the day is by Mudman NASCAR 2020. Accuse me of stealing? You will lose everything. This happened way back in the dark ages, 1986. I was 21 at the time and working for a gas station that was associated with a certain grocery store chain in Washington state. It was owned by a company not affiliated with said chain, but had locations at nearly every one. As this was long before the days of debit cards, this was a cash-only gas station. We didn't even take credit cards. Customers would pull up, pump their gas, and then come to my window to pay. We also sold cigarettes. No drinks, no snacks. Customers couldn't even get into my booth. I had been working there about a year when the company announced it was closing the location. My manager and I were offered positions at another location upstate and we both accepted. We moved our respective families and started our new jobs as new hires. This station was incredibly busy. We did more business in 8 hours than my old location would do in a week. This location also had a different setup. Here, you would pull into the station from a single entrance, pump your gas, and then drive forward to a single exit where the Pay Here booth was located. There were always 2 cashiers on duty. Each cashier had a cash drawer. One thing I should note, there were also no computers, so closing the drawer down between shifts was time-consuming and tedious. We had to manually count the cigarettes remaining and count the cash drawers. We would fill out an end-of-shift report listing the starting balances and the ending balances. We also had to list the gallons sold from each pump. At the end of the shift, the total of gallons sold and the total cigarettes sold should equal the cash balance. It is important to note here that not once in the year I had worked for the previous location had I been off by more than 10 cents. The following morning after my first shift, I was informed by the manager that I was short $50. Impossible, I said. I balanced it out yesterday. He said that I must have stolen that money after I completed the paperwork. I just looked at him and said, no, I didn't. He gave me a verbal warning and said if it happened again, I would be fired and the stolen money would be deducted from my paycheck this week. In the 5 days that followed, I realized quickly the manager was up to something. My old manager, who was just another worker now, was also accused of stealing, as was one other new employee. I can't vouch for the other employee, but I'm pretty sure she did nothing wrong. The employees that had been there a while were never accused of anything. I did some checking and found out this manager was relatively new, had only been there about 6 months. And the other cashiers had been here before him. Only new cashiers were being accused of stealing, and that location had been having stealing problems for about 6 months and the turnover was high with the new employees. I came to work at 6 a.m. on a Monday only to be told I was being fired. For cause. The manager accused me of taking $500 out of my drawer the previous Friday. He said he only discovered it this morning, even though he had worked Saturday and Sunday. I said okay and left. I was pretty angry and instead of going home, I parked in the grocery store parking lot and proceeded to settle in to watch the gas station. I knew that at 9 a.m. sharp, he would take the cash in the safe and make the weekend deposit. At 9 a.m., he left the gas station and headed to the bank. But instead of walking into the bank, he walked into the Indian casino next door. It's not really a casino like we think of today, but more of a betting parlor for the races. It did have slot machines, but no card tables. I think, well, this is interesting. He comes out of the casino at exactly 10 a.m., walks next door to the bank, does his business, and then heads back to the gas station. I head home with a plan. Every morning, I follow him from the gas station to the casino. I take a picture of him leaving and one of him arriving at the bank and walking into the casino. I take pictures of him coming out and then heading to the bank. I do this for 5 days straight. He even went on Saturday. On day 3, my old manager was fired for stealing $150. I get the film developed, no digital camera in the dark ages, note the times and dates on the back of each one. Then I call the main office of the gas company. It's after 5, but I'm hoping someone is there, and there is. I speak to a woman and explain the situation, and she says she knows exactly who I should speak to and transfers me. By some grace of God, she has transferred me to none other than the president/CEO of the company. I tell him my story and tell him I did not steal from his company and could prove who actually did. He took down my information and said he would be in touch. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right. The next morning, I went to the station to perform my usual observation of the manager. At 9 a.m., he leaves for the bank. At 10 a.m., he comes out. At that moment, 2 stern-looking gentlemen approach him. One pulls out his wallet and shows him something. The other one is talking. The manager goes pale and takes a step back. Next thing I know, he is being escorted to a car I hadn't noticed and they drive off. I lose them at a traffic signal, so I head back to the station. They all show back up about 5 minutes later, and a few minutes after that, a police cruiser pulls in. The officer talks to the stern gentleman and proceeds to place the manager in handcuffs. The other man says nothing but is glaring daggers at the manager. The president called me later that afternoon and informed me that the manager had been arrested for embezzlement. Turns out that in 6 months he had managed to steal about $5,000. He would take the store cash into the casino and gamble with it. If he won, he would make the normal bank deposit. If he lost, he would make the deposit and note in his records that we had been short the previous day. The CEO had already been focusing on that location because of the stealing and high turnover rate, but my information helped them figure out exactly what had been going on. I was thanked and sent a substantial check as a reward. My old manager was offered the manager's job and I was offered my old job back. I declined as I had already found another job that I liked more and paid better. The gambling manager was sentenced to 1 year in jail and ordered to attend counseling for his gambling addiction. His wife divorced him and took their 3 children to California. His house was foreclosed on, and he ended up in a homeless shelter. Don't accuse me of stealing. I will get revenge. I definitely say OP must have found a better job if they were able to just sit there and watch them every day at the gas station. It must have felt so cool for OP to play PI and watch it actually work out. All things considered, do you think what happened to the manager in the end was fitting for them, or do you think it was too much? He went to jail for 1 year and attended counseling for gambling addiction, his wife divorced and took their 3 children away, and his house was closed on and he was in a homeless shelter. Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by TFAW. If I'm going to have points taken off, they better be because of the work I did and not because my teammate finds my work unsatisfactory. When I was a freshman in uni, I had to take chemistry as one of the prereqs for my major. For my lab, I was paired with 3 other students, which all happened to be part of the honors college, and they knew I wasn't. They would often talk about their honor class and how hard it was to be an honor student, and one of them, whom I will refer to as K for know-it-all, would kind of belittle me for not being part of such an elite group at a public university. Every week we had a lab that required a full written report, and the 4 of us divided the work into 4 sections. I always volunteered for the intro and conclusion since chemistry has never been my forte, but I was a fairly decent technical writer. Not outstanding, but not bad. So I stuck to what I knew how to do. Kay kind of took the leadership role from our team, and she would compile all of our parts and turn in the lab report. So we get the first report back and we got points deducted from both my intro and conclusion. My spirits did fall low because I was sure I did a good job. Plus, I knew my teammates were smart, so I didn't want to be that student. Regardless, everything was fine until the pattern began to develop. Week after week, points were being deducted from the intro and conclusion only. Then it all went down. After a few weeks, Kay gets one of our lab reports back and she stands in front of me with that sassy, mad look. Arms crossed, foot tap and all. and she says something along the lines of, "You need to do better." And I'm like, I'm trying my best. Which I was. I was doing so much research and really trying to be accurate. But then she goes like, word by word, "Well, obviously it's not good enough." When she said this, I was so hurt and I just stayed quiet because that's who I am. But what hurt the most was that she did it in front of our other teammates. I felt so humiliated. One of the other girls in our team was also taken aback by her comment and she tried defending me, which I truly appreciated, but Kay just rolled her eyes and walked away. Things didn't improve after that. Points continued being deducted, and it was all because of my sections. Whatever. It's the end of the semester, and I come across all of the lab reports that I ended up keeping after the TA gave them back. For some reason, I decided to go over them, and the intro and conclusion were nothing like the ones I wrote. Everything had been edited. Format, word choice, and the entire freaking content was totally different. I was furious. I started writing a rant email to Kay, but in the middle of my dissertation, I thought of something better. I emailed our TA. I sent her everything. I explained everything that went down during the semester, sent her the original files and the emails I sent Kay that included the original attachments. I asked her to reconsider my grades and told her that I would accept any new grades she believed my work deserved, even if it meant having more points deducted. I was confident in my work though. I also asked that if she considered better marks for my work, to also grant the same grade to my other two teammates, except for Kay. The TA got back to me after a couple of days, letting me know that my grades and those of my other two teammates had been updated, just in time for the university's final grades deadline, and bam! A+ as my final grade. Not sure what Kay got since I'm sure she did well in the final, but based off the grade of all of our reports, it was a B. I wanted to send Kay my new grades, but unfortunately I'm not very brave. Plus I'm sure her and the other two students would talk about it and find out since lab ended about 2 weeks before finals and they still had that stupid honors class together. But let me tell you that the feeling of satisfaction I got was enough even if she never found out. I think OP got really lucky that the TA was willing to kind of regrade all of that stuff. If it was ever a school or any program that I was in growing up or going to school, even like community college style stuff, they would have never have reconsidered grades for those kinds of things. They'd probably say, well, you gotta be careful when you hand in the work, or double check it before you put it in or whatever. OP got lucky big time. This next story is by This Is My Username 51. Crap talk me? Okay, I won't hire you. So I worked at a company that had serious problems with appropriate authority. In our office, the office manager would routinely say terrible things about the company, encourage the techs to quit and leave, etc. When I was hired, she was looking for another job and was letting the techs do whatever they wanted. I was hired as a supervisor and discovered several ethical violations, and the quality of the work from the techs was extremely poor. We had one tech who was just flat out nasty. She was bigger and tried to physically intimidate another supervisor, who was very short, by standing up over her and getting into her personal space because the supervisor called her out on trying to punish someone else. Basically, they all got pissed because they were allowed for who knows how long to do whatever they wanted, and when I showed up and said you have to do your jobs, they didn't like me. So one day, the next level up supervisor decides that we have to fill out a rubric on how well the techs are doing their jobs. Of course, I get stuck with the nasty witch. I do my job, fill it out, and give it to her to sign. She signs it, but acts like I took a giant crap in her cereal. Definitely a "how dare you tell me how to do my job" sort of situation. She begins saying really nasty things about me to corporate, saying I'm terrible and mean to her, saying I'm not providing enough supervision. Never mind, she was constantly canceling, so I would show up and she wouldn't be there, change schedules with clients which she didn't have authority to do. I got her in trouble for that before I left, etc. She was a loudmouth, so someone who didn't like her told me all about how she was crap-talking me. Tired of all the BS, I just said freak it. I quit and started my own company. I've been very happy since. Cue revenge. A year later, I'm hiring for my company as I'm expanding, and guess who applies to work for me? Yup, Nasty Witch. I cannot tell you how much pleasure I got out of declining her application and clicking that she was unqualified to apply. In jobs in relatively team-based environments of any sort, people who act like that aren't really going to be able to make it very far. They'll probably stay at the bottom of the food chain. And it's very prevalent in this case that it shows that you can burn bridges really easily that you never know in the future might have been a great opportunity for you had you been nice to the person. What I think is awesome is that working with this terrible person with a terrible attitude forced OP into a much better situation for themselves that made them genuinely happy. And that's great. And our final story of the day is by Take Two Throwaway. You want one so bad? Here you go. The TLDR intro is that my mother-in-law is an absolute freaking nightmare. And recently she has been driving me nuts because she won't shut up about the fact that I haven't made her an embroidery piece. I picked up the hobby about a year ago and mostly do it just for myself, but every now and again I've given a piece to a friend or family because I knew they'd enjoy it. My mother-in-law hates this because she's a narcissist and can't feel like she's not the special star of the show. No one can get any paradise, gifts, or attention that she didn't, and definitely not in a bigger quantity than her. I've been ignoring her for the most part, but now I've started getting messages from her friends telling me how hurt she is, how awful it is to not set aside time to honor her. I should show my appreciation and that it'd be such a lovely gift for her, etc. Okay, fine. She wants one so bad, she's going to get one. I am currently putting the finishing touches on her design. A nice big tall bouquet of sunflowers, yellow carnations, and daffodils, surrounded by a basil foliage. In Victorian flower language, it all symbolizes false riches, vanity, and resentment and hatred. In flower language, huh? I'm definitely not fluent in that, but I could imagine maybe going over wherever or just constantly seeing that little embroidery piece being shown off somewhere, being slightly satisfying because you know the true meaning of that gift. And I would be annoyed too if I kept getting asked to make an embroidery piece. It kind of reminds me of those moments where you're like, okay, I'm finally gonna clean up my room. And then your parents would come in and say, clean up your room. And all of a sudden, you just don't want to do anything anymore. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like. And if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.